Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Third Man Cricket Podcast. Uh, I don't think it's been long since we actually did the uh, game preview. This was just about a couple of days ago, and here we are in 2 days. And I never actually thought, we'd be doing the review within 72 hours. So, uh, what happened at Motera is really surprising for all of us. We actually expected probably maybe a longer game, more competitive game. So here we are. We wanted to discuss various pointers, right from the conditions to the performances to what all factors actually influenced a lot. So I have Pavan Bhaya with me, and I wanted to know his views. How happy he is? Is he content? Of course, looking at the points table, I think all of us are pretty happy. But are we genuinely happy? Is something that I wanted to know. And over to you, Pavan Bhaya. Your views on the game.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ravi. As you rightly mentioned, we did not expect to regroup in such a short amount of time to do a review of this test match. And during our preview as well, when we were discussing on a lot of questions being up in the air with respect to this pink ball test match and how the conditions are going to behave, because traditionally the seam bowlers have been the ones who have been calling shots as far as the pink ball test matches are concerned, whether it'll be something different. And I think a lot of questions of them were answered, and a lot of them have remained to be answered as well. My overall view is that, of course, any test match in any condition across the globe, not only in India, whether it's a turning pitch or a seaming pitch, um, is not a good advertisement for the game if it just finishes within a couple of days. Um, it just knows it just leaves everybody, right from the viewers and the various stakeholders of the game, in bad taste is what I believe. I know a lot of us will be rejoicing because India ended up on the right side of the result. um, but it definitely does not be the kind of viewing spectacle that we would enjoy as viewers. Nevertheless, is in this day and age when every team out there is to when every team out there is wanting to maximize their home advantage, because winning away from home has become so difficult. um, Again, begs for that question as far as I'm concerned. And when we come to this test match, I think England selected a team for the pink ball test match rather than the conditions. India were pretty smart, and they knew that the pitch had a very dry look about it, and that's the reason they went with a spin heavy attack. We were both of the opinion that we are looking at a three seam attack plus two spinners, and Ashwin and Akshar. Surprisingly, they dropped Kuldeep and selected Washington Sundar instead of another seamer, and the backing was uh, that his batting credentials over Kuldeep might have clinched the deal for him. And England, on the other hand, were totally opposite, and they played both Broad and Anderson, going against their rotation policy, and got Jafra Archer back in as well, and had only that one spinner, Jack Leash. And in that preview as well, we were having a discussion that even if it comes to the second innings where the pitch is aiding spin, then Joe Root can look to become the second spinner in that scenario, and we all knew what he did today. Uh, and so it was a good toss to win for England after they made those selection blunders as well. Uh, it was certainly not a pitch where side batting first should have been bowled out for 112. Um, and if you see, only 30 wickets fell in the test match. India won by 10 wickets. But majority of those 30 wickets, I think, barring a couple of them, rest all of them were taken by spinners. And the only positive to come out with the bat for England was Rowley's innings. And again, most of his runs that he scored in that first innings were of the Pacers, similarly to how Rohit Sharma did in India's innings as well. And so once Akshar and Ashwin delivered that kind of performance in India, bowl them out for 112. We thought that the riding is pretty much on wall, and we expected India to, cope up a nice lead and then inflict possible innings defeat on England. But, and they ended up in a very strong position at the end of the first day as well at 99 for 3, and would have wanted to lose their skipper in the last over of the day. Uh, and we did not see Broad and Anderson possibly getting that much of aid that they would get with a Kookaburra pink ball or a Duke's pink ball. I think they were able to find swing only for the first 5 or 6 overs when the ball was hard. And then today, on the second day, the game just fast forwarded. And I was here in Canada, and by the time I woke up, India were only needing 15 runs in their second innings. I had to, rub my eyes and see uh, between the time slept and I got up, you had virtually two innings completed in the test match. So, uh, and then again in the in the first innings when India batted today, it was more of lack of application, I would say, on part of the batsmen, that they squandered that opportunity to score runs and build up on that lead. And we had somebody like Joe Root also picking in 5 wickets for 8 runs. And at one point of time, he had taken 3 wickets for no runs. That was reminiscent of Michael Clark's 6 for 9 all these years ago in Mumbai again on a dust ball. And even the lead of 33 seemed like gold dust on a wicket like that. And come the second innings, you saw only Akshar and Ashwin operate. The rest of the bowlers were just mere spectators and acting as fieldsmen. Um, and then they put the ball on the spot. Again, it was a gap in the skill level uh, of the batsmen. Not that the Indians were up to scratch in the first innings. And once they were bowled out for 81, it was just a mere formality because you wouldn't expect Joe Root to repeat that kind of performance with the ball. Uh, and with due respect to him, he took wickets of mainly lower order batsmen in the second innings, barring Rishabh Pant. Um, so once that was, uh, a done deal with only 49 to win, both Rohit and Shubman played the attacking game and took the game to Leach and Root. They knew that they just had to see out Leach and they could attack Joe Root from the other end. And then as a result, we had possibly, as you mentioned earlier in the day when we were chatting while the game was on, that shortest ever test match since the Second World War, and certainly the shortest test match ever in India, which is going to record books for these kind of reasons, uh, and which has put India ahead in the game 2-1. We'll talk about the ball and the pitch definitely going forward as well. But um, telling statistic was 21 wickets out of the 30 falling onto straighter deliveries. And as they always say, on a turning pitch, the most lethal delivery is the one that does not turn. So Indian spinners were bowling those kind of deliveries at will, trying to undercut the ball, and were showing their skill level that would allow them to bowl on such kind of a wicket. You just have to turn one or two balls, to cast that out in the batsman's mind. Um, and as Virat Kohli also suggested in the post-match presentation, it was basically lack of application on part of the batsmen from both the teams and not only the visitors that enabled that the game was shortened and ended up uh, in such quick time. Uh, Whereas opposed to if India were about to score say more than 250 runs in the first innings, then we would have had the same discussions post that second test match in Chennai. So I believe both the teams' batsmen need to pull up their socks, and I don't see conditions changing much going into that fourth test match as well. So this is how I view the game from my point of view, Ravi. What about you?
Uh, Pretty much. I totally agree with a lot of points that you actually mentioned. Uh, I mean, just to kind of highlight, I really wanted to talk about the Rohit Sharma brilliance once again. I mean, uh, this guy has scored 50% of what India has actually put up, and not easy. Of course, we know how tough it was, and he kind of negotiated the seamers and also spinners quite well. Got out to I'll say, an empire's call decision. Nothing much could have been done there. Uh, so due credit to him. I think he pretty much set it up for us. So like how I mentioned during the Chepauk game, how he was my man of the match in that very game. Today, of course, I think Akshar deserves it. But having said that, Rohit kind of put it in a platter for the spinners to do what they can do or what they're expected to do, while the rest of the 10 men in the Indian batting lineup has failed. So that brilliance has to be spoken about. And one more point I wanted to discuss was uh, the straight ball effect, like how you rightly pointed out. Uh, we see a lot of Indian cricket fans actually going on and talking about the 21 of the 30 dismissals, how they got for a straight ball, and how it was not necessarily turn and so on and so forth. And actually, there's some amount of narrative probably even by BCCI, because I won't say BCCI, but at least during presentation also, this whole statistic was presented by Murli Karthik, and everyone started discussing about the same, as part of commentary and subsequently, and it's all over Twitter. The basic logic, like you rightly pointed out, is a, g- someone is deceived by a straighter ball when he's expecting spin, and when if he's expecting spin, he's pretty much expecting basis his own experience on that very ground, right? On that very pitch. So yes, I agree. 21 of 30 were straighter deliveries, were lethal, like how the legendary Bishan Singh Bedi sub tells. He once remarked saying, the most lethal delivery is the straighter one on a turning pitch. So while it is still dangerous, it's because there is some amount of a mirage that is set up. Okay, you're probably expecting some angle of spin, but no, it's just a straight flipper like how Kumble used to deliver. So I expected the narrative to be even more profound or probably even more knowledgeable, but sadly I don't see this aspect of this qualitative aspect of argument anywhere in Twitter. Of course, we have few folks talking about it, but uh, predominantly it's just mentioned that uh, there was not much spin, or probably the pitch was not uh, very I'll say harmful, and so on and so forth. But I personally think this pitch was tailor made. I mean, it's made for us. Was it sportive? Definitely not. Who the hell is expecting sportive wickets? बहुत हो गया मेहमान नवाजी is my point is, the whole discussion comes to this only when you're expecting sportive tickets, or probably you're expecting a game of 5 days. To be honest, I wasn't expecting a game of 5 days. I'm okay with a game that ends on day four. Um, but the only disappointment was India's batting, because as you rightly mentioned, I totally agree with you. Had we put up 100 more runs, and actually we were quite comfortable, and we thought we would be putting up 100 more runs. Had we put up that, I don't think there would have been any discussion, and I think the whole uh, narrative would have been about how England failed to bat and so on and so forth. And we saw that glimpses of attacking batting that we could see in the second innings by India, and we chased the total with ease. And come on this wicket, 49 also is a tough total. Like Joy Bhattacharya just tweeted this evening, it never happened apparently in his life that a total of 49 is actually kind of giving him a heart stroke and so on and so forth. So that's something that I thought I wanted to talk about. The game ended well, so there's nothing much to talk about Washington's selection. It's pretty much the same that happened with Kuldeep, when you have two brilliant spinners doing the job, and you don't have necessarily a job to do. But of course, Washington was there to get some runs, but mm, not much can be spoken about when the rest of the probably nine batters have failed miserably as well. Uh, so last point, what I thought I'll kind of mention in addition to the regular review, was also about the Jack Leach effect and how he was brilliant in getting amazing wickets of Rohit, Pujara, Kohli, and Rahane. Root pretty much stuck to the basics, I'll say, and uh, to be honest, it was our inability to negotiate smartly. I expected Rishabh to kind of attack, and but he kind of seemed slow. He kind of seemed he wanted to take some time, and that's where I thought we missed a trick. And Kohli is absolutely right. It's batsman inability. The last point that you actually made, right, with respect to the conditions, just a pointer there. I don't expect the same conditions in the next test, mainly because of the ball and the kind of I'll say the chaos around it. Like we may see something like a second test Chennai pitch is what I'm expecting, not necessarily an horrible game, because Root also pretty much pointed out the fact that that whole feel like plastic, that plastic feel, or the coat, the extra coat is giving that extra 3-4 kilometers in the in terms of speed, and it kind of drifts so soon, and you're just clueless. We've seen how Zach Crawley got out. We've seen how Bairstow was clueless all the while. So I think with the classic traditional SG ball, there'll be some amount of calibration again that will be made, and of course you have a lot of time in to spend this time around in the training net. So I think we'll have a proper, I'll say, a day four finish or a day five finish game. I'm expecting, but of course, if that doesn't happen, we just have to, uh, you know, again blame the inability of the batsman to do well. So that's where I thought I'll kind of pitch in some points.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, fair enough on that. And people also have to understand that bowling a straighter delivery or the delivery that goes the other way on a pitch that is turning square or even turning a bit takes a lot of skill. It's not that these bowlers like Akshar Patel and Ravichandran Ashwin, who has a lot of experience, are bowling these straighter deliveries without wanting to bowl them or just letting the pitch do the rest. On a pitch which is turning, it takes a lot of skill from a spin bowler to bowl that straighter delivery. And as you mentioned um, rightly, that the extra lacquer on the SG pink ball is what might have made that ball skid more quickly than a red ball would do. And it'll be interesting to see if we see more of these kind of dismissals in the fourth test match with the red SG ball, where batsmen are found wanting again the straighter delivery. Because if it does not skid on, and even if it's a straighter delivery, that gives the batsman a second or two to adjust themselves and play that straighter delivery. So it's not that, if it's a spinning pitch, the spinner just has to turn up and bowl and he will get wickets. He applies a lot of skill, undercuts the deliveries a lot as well. And kudos to Akshar for that, the way he's performed, especially in these two test matches. Yes, the conditions have been helpful, but still you've got to deliver and land the ball. I don't think, uh, you know, uh, Ravindra Jadeja would have done any better than what Akshar Patel has done. He's picked up 11 wickets in this test match and 7 wickets in the previous test match. And Jadeja also would have picked up the same amount of wickets, if not just one or two more than Akshar Patel. Uh, so due credit to him as well. And I'm happy to see that we are developing the pen strength in the spin department as well, like we are doing in the pace department. So that will hold us in good stead. And I'm sure that Akshar has a lot more to offer with the bat as well. He's been a bit unlucky in a couple of his dismissals where he's tried to be aggressive, but I definitely think that he has good amount of potential with the bat as well going forward.
Poor chap Nadim doesn't get these wickets, isn't it? Was bashed after the first test, and then uh, pretty much conditions favored us in second. And of course, this is an altogether a different, uh, I, of course, conditions to actually play, especially with the pink ball. Of course, while we were discussing, uh, we pretty much touched upon how we may expect the red ball to do in the next game. So, what I actually also wanted to kind of touch upon today, we did discuss about Ishan's prestigious, or if no, much awaited 100th test, and because as an Indian fast bowler and whatnot. But I never thought I will also get to discuss Ashwin's 400th wicket as part of the preview, and wanted to know, like, we've seen this guy grow, like, uh, right from his debut, the mentoring that he received under MS, the early debuts, and then a lot of spin wickets actually prepared. And then I'll also want to leave it to you in comparing him with Harbhajan Singh as well. Of course, different types of players. What I'll say is they played in very different eras. There's no one way to put it or the other, like who was more impactful and all. But I think as time would tell, maybe Ashwin would end up with more number of wickets, perhaps for sure. But the same amount of impact or the quality of the batsman that he has actually bowled to may still be questionable. And I personally think Habbaji actually bowled to a better set of batsmen who could have handled spin well. So, few thoughts of yours on Ashwin's 400, the amazing feat, and also the Bhaji versus Ashwin debate. What's your views?
A monumental achievement on part of Ravichandran Ashwin. No mean feat to achieve 400 wickets in Test cricket. Doesn't matter if you're a spinner or a seamer playing in any conditions that are helpful or not. It's a substantial achievement, and I think he's a modern day um, great as far as I'm concerned. And we're lucky to have this jewel in our crown as far as Test cricket is concerned for India. And we had all these questions as who after Ashwin and who after Kumble and Harbhajan, and everybody looked up to this lean, mean guy from Tamil Nadu who made his debut back, I think, in 2010. And since then, for the best part of last decade, he has shouldered India's spin department absolutely amazingly. And I think everybody would agree that he is a great student of the game. Um, and he has a lot of uh, thinking behind what he does on the cricket pitch, and not for nothing that people refer to him as professor in the team, or a scientist otherwise, as he's called by the commentators. It's an absolutely uh, an amazing sight to see him at work. He uh, throws the bait and sets up a batsman so beautifully, uh, which is reminiscent of what we heard as youngsters about the great era Pali Prasanna, and the words that we heard about him and from his peers through their interviews can be seen through Ashwin. How he sets up the batsman. Even in this Test series, you see him going around the wicket, over the wicket, um, across various angles and stuff like that. Amazing, amazing, amazing player, and I think he will go down in the annals of Indian cricket history and the world cricket history also as one of the greatest spinners to have graced the game. Um, I definitely have no doubt in my mind that he had the potential to go this far. Just that he had a lean period in between when he was, criticized of trying too many things and being very impatient as far as Test cricket is concerned. He would have so many variations up his sleeve, which he would obviously practice, a lot in nets. But when it came to match situations, if something did not work for him, like his stock ball or the dusra, then he would, start experimenting a lot and ended up underperforming for a brief period in between. And then again, a lot was left to be desired with respect to his fitness levels. And in the last couple of years as well, he was overlooked uh, when Ravindra Jadeja started developing uh, as a batsman as well. He was found wanting with his with his batting skills, although he had a very good start with the bat to his Test career. And before that Test match in Chennai, he had scored 400s, and there was a lull in between, where he was not performing well with the bat. and that sort of reduced his confidence with the ball as well. Um, and he very rightly mentioned today in the post match segment that Virat Kohli and Shastri came up to him and said that we absolutely have no issues with the way you're bowling. I think you're bowling very well, but we need to see you batting well as well. And I think that was a message sent out to him in no uncertain terms that we're looking at multi-skilled players. And so kudos to him. You know, he keeps working on his game. As I mentioned, he's always been a thinking cricketer. So he keeps working and constantly improving himself to come up with new tricks of the trade. Uh, you know, if batsmen are have caught hold of what he's doing, then he tries to innovate something else. Carom ball is one such thing. Never shy of trying out those things, and he's a player who basically calls a spade. And Sunil Gavaskar also, you know, mentioned that he might go up a bit of stick in the current uh, team scenario where they might not like players who are very up forward and straight like him and would have repercussions with respect to their places in the team as well. So you want to have such characters in your team, and I'm very, very, you know, surprised when he was taken off captaincy in the IPL. Uh, he can be a potential captain, you know, for any team that he plays for. Although I don't see him captaining India, and he's got only 5 or 6 years more to play, considering he keeps himself fit. Uh, but he's such a thinking brain, always, you know, keeps on ticking that he would definitely make a great captain and a leader as well. And coming to your second part of the question about comparison with Baji, both great bowlers in their own rights. I 100% agree with you that the quality of batsmen that Harbhajan Singh came up against were far better than the current batsmen that Ashwin is coming up against. But you cannot hold that against him. You know, both have basically played in different eras. There was a bit of overlap in between when both of them were playing together for India, and then Baji went on a downward spiral for a bit over there. Um,
Mhm.
I would definitely say Ashwin is the better batsman and an all-round package. Baji also scored a couple of test hundreds and had that batting potential, but was not consistent. And some might even argue that, you know, Baji never bowled on such kind of dust bowls, although they were very rare when he was playing. You know, India did produce those dust bowls, but not that many when, you know, Baji was at his peak.
So true.
And you know, when you compare their overseas records, both were constantly improving as their careers went along. Uh, you know, somebody like a great Anil Kumble, it took him a couple of tours or 3 tours to Australia to figure out how to bowl on those kind of wickets, and it's a constantly learning process. Jimmy Anderson, after playing for more than a decade and a half, you know, understood how to bowl in subcontinental conditions and thrived in them. So it's never easy when you're performing away from home. And if somebody's going to say that Ashwin has taken most of his wickets on doctored pitches, you know, they are doing a great disservice to him. Nobody would say something similar about a Jimmy Anderson, who has taken most of his wickets in seaming and swinging conditions in England. And then he has performed overseas as his career has gone along. And we've seen Ashwin perform very well in Australia recently. That was his best overseas tour so far. And I think he will be very, very keen to perform well in the England series, the away England series that's going to come up later this year. And then we're going to go to South Africa later in the year as well. So both modern day greats, he'll definitely end up getting more wickets than Baji. Baji got 417. He's already taken 400. So it remains to be seen whether he is able to catch up with Anil Kumble. And at the rate which he's going, I'm pretty much sure that he might end up as the highest wicket taker for India in Test matches. So all in all, you know, a great player for India, and I would say we should look forward to many more uh, great performances from him because I think he has much more to offer to Indian cricket.
Certainly, yes. Actually, right before the Australian tour, he was at about 365 or so. This guy has picked up around 35 wickets in the next 7 to 8 tests, and it's amazing. And he's done uh, amazingly well, winning the series at Australia as well.
So I think pretty much I kind of agree with what you just mentioned and very well put there, found by which kind of makes me talk about the World Test Championship scenario. Of course, as things stand, we are looking good. I genuinely hope the fourth test, which would be a flat track Jamnagar to Vadodara highway, probably, wherein India is batting and maybe scoring about 700, 750 runs, and we're just kind of playing out a draw or whatever. But having said that, I don't think that'll either way happen, especially when we have the momentum with us. Uh, and it all goes down to the wire, right? After all whole COVID scenario, you know, the, the whole intensity is much more considering there's a cup to actually fight for, at least for top four teams of India, New Zealand, Australia, and England. Of course, the rest of the teams were never necessarily in contention. But I really like this whole debate or the whole intensity around playing the final. And the bilingual series never actually gave that intensity. And now it's not just about Ashes. It's not just about Border Gavaskar Trophy. It's not just about the current bilingual trophy. I'm not very sure if there's a concept of retention and so on and so forth with this. But having said that, there's a place to fight for, and England pretty much were confident after the first test, and now here we are with a test more to play. India look favorites, but having said that, nothing to get complacent. Important to play with your to your strengths, and I think the series would end 3-1. What's your view, Pawan, by on it?
Yeah, as you summed it up, India now need a win or a draw to secure their place in the World Test Championship final. In England are pretty much out of the race. I don't think we're going to see a drawn Test match in the series. For that to happen, it would have to be, as you mentioned, an absolute road and a batting beauty. Uh, Although it might favor India, I don't think India will go for that kind of a pitch. I see more of a balanced kind of a pitch over there, which will be a traditional Indian wicket, just like we had in first Test match, where it is good for batting for the first 2 or 3 days and just crumbles up, which might take the toss, which might make the toss more important if those are the conditions. Uh, because in conditions like the third and the second Test match, when it is spinning right from day one, the toss becomes immaterial, and then it's all about skill levels. Uh, and obviously, Ahmedabad as a venue would not want to host back-to-back Test matches, which would end up so soon. So I'm pretty much guessing that we will see a better pitch to bat on for sure in that fourth Test match. And once India get onto a roll at home, they're a very difficult team to stop. Um, and for a change, we'll see the Aussies rooting for the Englishmen because that's their only hope now. If the Poms win, then the Aussies are also into the final of the World Test Championship, which will be grossly unfair to see India right up on the points table, but not playing the final. But such is the
That's right.
scenario and the times that we are living in. But I'm pretty much confident that they have the arsenal to just go ahead and make it 3-1, and then it will set up the final nicely from a World Test Championship point of view because. Uh, as you mentioned, because there is a championship on the line, every game has a context attached to it, and that makes it even more fascinating. So it'll be no less than a World Cup final when both the teams, whoever those are, will stack up at Lords in June. So uh, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and we'll of course be doing a substantial preview before that Test match next week as well.
Indeed. A couple of more pointers. We can probably get some quick thoughts on it. Number one, do you see any demerit points to this ground being actually imposed, I'll say, by ICC? Could that be possibly happening? And lastly, we can probably briefly discuss about how this whole culture of naming sports facilities and cricket stadiums after politicians is a big trend, and now this time around, I think the ruling party is also kind of guilty about it. So, what's your thoughts on both of this?
I'm surprised if demerit points are awarded. they'll certainly not be awarded to Chennai because we saw a gulf between the skill levels of both the sides. Here, the ball definitely had more of a upper hand than the bat. Um, but again, that thing of not excessive turn being on the pitch and most batsmen getting out to straighter deliveries and it not being a dangerous pitch as such physically, harming any batsman like the Joburg pitch in 2017-18 season in South Africa. I'll be pleasantly surprised if the demerit points are given. That would mean 3 points staved off India, uh, you know, which would make it immaterial even if they win the test match, they get 30 points and they go through. But uh, on the other side, I don't see merit points awarded in my view. I'm pleasantly surprised if Chalaka Srinath reports this, not because he would want to be biased, but from a cricketing point of view, say that. Second question, yeah, we have been seeing this right from our childhood. It's become a tradition, and I think only happens in India where they want to name cricket stadiums after administrators or politicians. That has become a joke, and you will not find this anywhere else. It'd be fitting to name a stadium after a cricketer, or why not just name it the Gujarat Cricket Association Stadium or the Ahmedabad Cricket Association Stadium, like the MCG or the SCG. It's for the public. It's for the players. It's the infrastructure for the majority of the stakeholders of the game, and you don't want such things to happen. But this is definitely not the last that we are going to see. You know, and more so naming the stadium after a person who is still alive. It's immaterial whether he's leading the country or not. It's just a way of pleasing uh, them or some other quarters of the political world, as I would say. And a classic case was Bishan Singh Bedi asking, the DDCA to just remove his name from the stand that he was on with at the Firoz Shah Kotla because it's going to be named as the Arun Jaitley Stadium, and there was a statue of him to be installed over there as well. So
Mhm.
it leaves everybody in bad state, uh, bad taste. I must say, it's the player, the public are the two majority stakeholders of the game, and if they are served well, then everything is taken care of. And like Bishan Bedi says, cricketer should be a good student of the game, and an administrator should be a good servant of the game. So uh, I don't think that's going to happen in a country like India. So I think we should try and live with it. I know back in Hyderabad, we come from Hyderabad, so why can't we see the HCA stadium? I mean, what has somebody, an ex prime minister, done for the game? Yet you want to name a stadium after them, or so. It's not going to end, I would say. So we have to live with it, unfortunately.
So true. I mean, I was personally disappointed with this whole naming piece mainly because there was a ground there, an historic ground, which had tons of history there. Okay, it's not like a new, uh, pretty much a new stadium right there, and so that was quite disappointing. Another aspect of the discussion which I got to know is that actually the PM, the current PM, was actually an administrator back then and president of GC, and hence they kind of took it up. So of course, two sides of the same coin, and it depends on how we try to understand. So yep, that's about it, peeps, for this week, and I think we have had an awesome chat today, and I'm really looking forward for the fourth test preview and some more review probably of the cricketing action as well happening around. Thanks a lot, and any final thoughts, Pawan?
I think that's it from me. Yeah, it was a good discussion, and all of us are looking forward to next week, the final test match.
Indeed. Thanks everyone. Take care. See you
Thank
guys
you.
soon. Bye
Bye.
bye.